This news release reports the first 3 holes that we drilled this year in 2023. It's a continuation of the drill program that we began late last year and recently finished that focused on the San Acacio resource area, including the Veta Grande structure and footwall and hanging wall splays. This is one of the things that we've been trying to test in the resource area is what material remains in the ground. What did those old-time miners leave behind? And the answer is they left behind significant material that is mineralized and well mineralized. And I think for us and for the future of the project, that's really good news. Drill hole DDSA 2366 has encountered both the highest grade and the widest width of mineralization that has ever been drilled on Defiance's Zacatecas district projects. The cutoff grade from the most recent published resource is 100 grams per ton silver equivalent, and we use this number as a cutoff grade for reporting our results in news releases as well. The first hole that we drilled this year was DDSA 2364 here in the northwestern portion of the property. And one of the main goals of this drill hole was to test and understand the structural controls on the mineralization that exists in the hanging wall to the Veta Grande structure. So this is the main Veta Grande structure, more or less in here. And there are hanging wall veins that exist more or less in sort of this direction. And the reportable intercepts, particularly these wide ones that are at a nice wide width, are more or less in this zone that's highlighted in red here. And for us, that's really significant because we are working towards modeling the zones in the hanging wall that contain grade. And this hole will really help us constrain where those are, what direction they are trending in, and help us model them in a much more accurate manner for the next resource estimate. The next hole that we drilled was DDSA 2365. That's this hole right in here. And the main purpose of this drill hole was to test a zone of mineralization that was encountered in a historic underground drill hole, which is this one right here. And what we discovered was that there was mineralization in this area. However, the historic drill hole appears to have drilled along one of the hanging wall splays instead of sort of perpendicular to the splay. And so the intercept looked longer than it is in reality. And we didn't really expect there to be good grades and wide widths in this area because we know where sort of the mineralized chutes are. And this is outside of it. But we did hit a couple of zones that did have grade, one of them reportable. And also in the Veta Grande here, the intercept was anomalous, but didn't run high grades. And that's as we expected, because as I said here, we're a bit outside of where we believe the main mineralized chutes to be. We were very keen to drill hole DDSA 2366, which is here in this eastern zone of the resource area, because we noticed that there was a very large gap in the drilling in this area here. So we planned hole 66 in this area specifically to test this zone so that we could have the correct spacing and structural orientation for the upcoming model for the resource. And we anticipated to encounter some underground workings. We did not anticipate to encounter the size of historic workings that we found here. And in a lot of places where there are historic workings, in many projects, the material has been removed. But here there is substantial material that has been left in situ around these historic workings. As you can see from this section, there is a historic drill hole in this zone here, very shallow, as well as an intercept down here, which is a hole that we drilled in 2021. And the thing that was missing in terms of understanding and quantifying this zone for the resource was a drill hole here between this 1995 drill hole and this 2021 drill hole. as you can see here, there's a couple of zones that have both very high grade and very wide widths. So we were really excited to get the assay results back from hole 66, because what we discovered was that we had intercepted a very wide zone of mineralization, including 41.83 meters at 157.3 grams per ton silver, which is 169 grams per ton silver equivalent. And included within that zone is 15.96 meters at 407 grams per ton silver equivalent. And these composites include the gaps where the historic workings existed. Those were calculated using a zero number. And so for us, that's really important to understand that despite the fact that some of the material was mined historically, a significant volume of material remains in place. So while we were drilling hole 2366, we encountered these historic workings as previously mentioned, and we were unable to pass this historic working down here, which is an old mine tunnel, which was modeled more or less in this area. However, we now have a much better control on exactly where it is. So because we were unable to pass this historic working here, we re-entered the hole and started core drilling 66A right about here. And as you can see, it's taken a slightly different path and was then able to avoid this large tunnel. And we wanted to continue the hole here because we had some evidence that there might be additional structures in the footwall to this zone. And as you can see, we did encounter some mineralized zones here in the footwall. They're low grade at this time, but it's important to identify where these structures are located so that we can follow up in these areas to look for zones where they may be wider or contain more significant grade. So the company is awaiting assays for the rest of the drill holes in this phase of drilling, and that is drill holes DDSA 2367 until 2372. And we look forward to publishing those results when they become available.